Why stillness is essential to understand yourself. 1. The noise that drowns us when silence becomes a revolution. When was the last time you sat in complete silence, without checking your phone, without reacting to a message, without reaching for something, anything to fill the space? Most people can't remember because in the modern world, silence isn't just rare, it's uncomfortable. We live in a storm of sounds, notifications, traffic, scrolling feeds, constant conversation. And even when it's quiet outside, our minds keep racing, thinking, planning, judging, always reaching for the next thing. But here's a thought that might unsettle you. What if this noise isn't just around us, but inside us? What if we've grown so used to distraction that we've forgotten how to be with ourselves, without the voices of others, without comparison, without performance, just presence? The Stoics warned us long ago, a scattered mind leads to a scattered life. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And how much of our imagination today is fueled not by stillness, but by overstimulation? We scroll to avoid boredom, we fill calendars to feel valuable, we check messages to feel needed, but in the process we become strangers to our own minds. Silence becomes scary because it brings us face to face with everything we've avoided. Unanswered questions, unprocessed pain, unfulfilled dreams, and the truth that maybe, just maybe, we've been living on autopilot. This is where Stoicism offers a radical shift. It says, don't fear the silence, go toward it, because in that stillness, you meet the person beneath the noise. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor surrounded by pressure and power, found his anchor not in conquest, but in quiet. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. This isn't just poetic, it's a practical call to action. It means your peace isn't out there. It's not in the next achievement, not in the next notification. It's already within you, but only if you learn to listen. So why does this matter? Because without stillness, we live on the surface of ourselves. We react instead of reflect. We consume instead of create. We chase instead of choose. And slowly, quietly, we lose the ability to hear the most important voice of all, our own. So here's a challenge. Can you sit in silence today? Not for hours, just a few minutes with no phone, no task, no performance, just breath, just presence, just you. Not to escape the world, but to finally return to yourself. In a society that rewards speed, stillness is rebellion. In a world addicted to noise, silence is power. The Stoic doesn't chase every distraction. They train the mind to be still, not to withdraw, but to gain clarity. Because the quiet moments, that's where the real work begins. So ask yourself again, when was the last time you truly sat in silence? Not to think, not to fix, not to run, but simply to be. The noise outside will never stop, but you can choose to stop feeding the noise inside. That's where freedom begins. That's where you begin. 2. Stillness reveals the mind, seeing ourselves beyond the masks. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca wrote that nearly 2,000 years ago, and yet it feels like he was writing about today. We rush, we scroll, we keep busy, not just to be productive, but to stay one step ahead of our own minds. Because if we were to slow down, if we were to sit in stillness, what might we see? Stillness is not passive, it's not lazy, it's not weakness. Stillness is exposure, a quiet mirror that doesn't flatter, but reveals. It shows us what we've been thinking, what we've been running from, what we've been pretending not to feel. And it shows us the stories we've repeated for years, stories that shape how we see the world and how we see ourselves. When you stop moving, you start seeing. You see the loops, that same fear that keeps dressing up in new clothes, that old resentment you thought was gone, but never actually addressed, that desire for approval, subtle, quiet, but still tugging at your every move. In the noise of daily life, you don't notice, but in stillness, everything speaks. This is why the Stoics practiced solitude. They didn't fear the silence, they used it. Marcus Aurelius didn't just write for others, he wrote to confront himself, to track his thoughts, to examine where ego had crept in or where fear had disguised itself as logic. He didn't need an audience, he needed honesty. And stillness was how he found it. We live in a world that teaches us to define ourselves by what we do, our job, our status, our schedule, our output. But those are roles, those are masks. In stillness, the masks fall. You're not your productivity, you're not your resume, you're not the version of you people expect to see. In the quiet, you meet what's real, and it can be uncomfortable, but it can also be liberating. The Stoics weren't emotionless, they were self-aware. They understood that a noisy mind leads to a noisy life, that without clarity, we are ruled by impulses, habits, and outside opinions. Stillness is how you break that cycle, not by force, but by noticing. You observe your thoughts like waves without getting pulled under. You become the witness, not the whirlwind. Here's something to try. Just sit for 5 minutes. No phone, no journal, no music. Just sit and watch your mind. What rises? What repeats? What are you believing right now without question? Stillness doesn't give you all the answers, but it shows you the questions worth asking. And maybe that's what Seneca meant. It's not the reality that hurts us. It's our unexamined interpretation of it. In imagination, we create fears, invent enemies, relive past shame. But in stillness, we see them clearly. We don't push them away. We observe, we learn, and slowly, we begin to reclaim peace. So ask yourself today, what might I notice if I stop moving? What belief has been guiding me without my permission? And more importantly, who am I beneath the noise? Stillness doesn't change you, it reveals you. And sometimes that's all we need. 3. Distraction is the enemy of self-knowledge. The quiet war against your inner life. Every day we wake up and plug in. Before our feet touch the floor, we're already checking messages, scrolling headlines, consuming opinions, and so it begins. A day filled with distractions. Noise, notifications, meetings, social feeds, endless motion. But here's a question worth asking. How much of this is truly necessary and how much is just escape? Distraction is not always loud. Sometimes it's disguised as productivity. Sometimes it wears the mask of connection. But at its core, distraction is one thing: avoidance. Avoiding boredom, avoiding discomfort, avoiding silence, avoiding yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy." But he also warned of something deeper. Be careful not to become a stranger to your own soul. That happens quietly, not in a moment, but over time. Each day spent looking outward, never inward. Each opinion borrowed. Each moment filled until there's no space left for reflection. Think about it. When was the last time you asked yourself, what do I truly believe? What do I actually feel beneath the surface? What kind of person am I becoming? If those questions feel unfamiliar, it's not because you're lost. It's because you've been busy, too busy to stop, too distracted to notice, too overwhelmed to listen to the one voice that actually matters, your own. And that's the danger. A distracted life is not just noisy, it's hollow. It runs fast, but goes nowhere. You know the schedule, the expectations, the pressure, but you don't know the person you're becoming in the process. The Stoics believed that self-knowledge was a form of power. You cannot live well unless you know yourself. Your fears, your biases, your values, your direction. And you can't know yourself when every spare second is filled with distraction. So what's the solution? It's not about deleting all your apps or disappearing from the world. It's about creating space, intentional moments of silence, of unplugging, of asking real questions. 5 quiet minutes in the morning, a short walk without your phone, a journal where you meet your mind on paper. Small acts of stillness to reclaim something sacred, you. Without silence, life becomes imitation. You absorb other people's goals. You chase trends instead of purpose. You react instead of reflect. And slowly you forget how to think for yourself, how to feel deeply, how to decide what truly matters. That's not a life. It's a performance, and you deserve more than that. So here's the challenge. Can you pause long enough to meet your soul? Can you turn off the noise, not to escape the world, but to finally hear your own thoughts? Stillness doesn't make you weak, it makes you aware. And once you're aware, you become powerful. You stop living on autopilot. You begin choosing consciously, clearly, honestly. In a world of endless escape, presence is resistance, clarity is rebellion, self-knowledge is strength, and it all begins with one simple decision: to stop running. 4. Stillness builds inner clarity. Let the mind settle like water. Imagine this: a jar of muddy water, shaken. You can't see through it. Everything is swirling, cloudy, messy, confused. But what happens if you stop shaking it? You let it sit, let it be still, and slowly the mud settles, the water clears, and you begin to see. That is what stillness does for the mind. Most of us live in a state of constant shaking. Thoughts swirl, emotions collide, external noise pours in from every direction. We try to make big decisions while our minds are muddy. We react while overwhelmed by confusion. We chase clarity, but never stop long enough to let it arrive. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't seek stillness to escape life, they used it to understand it. Stillness wasn't silence for silence's sake. It was a tool, a teacher, a mirror. When you pause, when you breathe, when you choose to do nothing but be, that's when clarity comes. Clarity about your values. What actually matters to me? What do I want to stand for? Clarity about your fears. What am I really afraid of? What part of me is trying to stay safe? Clarity about your attachments. What am I clinging to? What do I think I need that I could actually let go of? Stillness creates space, and in that space, truth has room to emerge. Not dramatic, not loud, but quiet, certain, grounded. It's in the quiet moments that Seneca wrote letters to himself. It's in the early hours of the morning that Marcus Aurelius reflected on his soul. And it's in disciplined pause that Epictetus taught his students to question every impulse before they acted on it. They knew clarity isn't something you force, it's something you allow. Most of us live in reaction. We get angry and reply. We get anxious and act. We get bored and distract ourselves. But reaction is not clarity. Reaction is instinct. Clarity is wisdom. And wisdom requires a pause. Think of stillness as a clearing in a forest. Life is dense, loud, overgrown. But stillness is where you can finally see the sky. It's where you can hear your own heartbeat. It's where you stop being pulled in 1,000 directions and simply ask yourself, what feels right? Here's the truth. You already have the answers. You already know your values. You already sense what's off, what's true, what's calling you. But the noise drowns it out. Stillness doesn't give you clarity. It reveals the clarity that's already there. So practice pausing. Practice stepping back. Practice asking before reacting, what's actually happening inside me right now? Even a short pause, 10 seconds of breath, can change your next action. Over time, these pauses build something powerful, self-trust. You stop guessing, you start knowing. So today, ask yourself, where is the water muddy in my mind? And can I be still enough to let it settle? You don't need all the answers right now. You just need to listen, and stillness will speak. 5. The practice of inner observation. The art of watching your own mind. Have you ever stopped just to watch your own thoughts? Not to judge them, not to fix them, just to notice? That's the beginning of inner observation, a skill the Stoics believed was essential to freedom. Because how can you master your life if you haven't even met your mind? Epictetus, the great Stoic teacher, said it clearly. It's not events that disturb people, it's their judgments about those events. So what if your pain isn't from the world, but from how you see it? What if you could catch the judgment before it controls you? That's the power of inner observation, to create space between stimulus and response, between thought and action, between assumption and truth. It's not about suppressing emotion, it's about witnessing it, calmly, clearly, like watching clouds drift across the sky. In a noisy world, we rarely do this. We react, we scroll, we vent, we run. But the Stoic path invites you to pause and look inward, not for answers from the outside, but for awareness from within. Here's what inner observation looks like in practice. You feel anger. Instead of snapping, you ask, what story am I telling myself? You feel envy. You breathe and ask, what is this craving showing me about my values? You feel fear. You step back and ask, is this real danger or imagined loss of control? These small moments of inquiry, they change everything, because now you're not trapped in the emotion. You're witnessing it. And once you witness it, you can work with it. So how do we build this skill? Here are a few simple Stoic tools. 1. Journaling. Write down your thoughts at the end of the day. Ask yourself, what did I feel strongly today? What was I telling myself in that moment? Did that belief serve me or trap me? This is not about writing perfectly. It's about meeting yourself on paper. 2. Breath awareness. Sit in silence for 2 minutes. Just follow your breath. When a thought arises, don't fight it. Just notice it, label it, e.g., worry, planning, doubt, and come back to the breath. Over time, this builds mental distance, a powerful shield against impulsive reaction. 3. Morning or evening reflection. The Stoics practiced this daily. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself each morning. Seneca reflected in the evening. Ask, what kind of person do I want to be today? Where did I live up to that today? Where did I fall short, and what can I learn? This habit isn't about guilt, it's about growth through awareness. Inner observation is not always comfortable. You'll see parts of yourself you've ignored, old patterns, unhelpful beliefs, painful assumptions. But that's where transformation begins. You can't change what you don't notice. And the moment you observe a thought, you're no longer ruled by it. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who sees them, and that is your power. So today, ask yourself, what am I believing right now? Does that belief make me stronger or smaller? Can I sit with this thought without becoming it? This is not spiritual fluff. This is Stoic training, clarity, discipline, freedom. And it starts with one quiet moment of watching your own mind. 6. Understanding precedes change. Growth begins with honest awareness. Growth doesn't begin with action. It begins with awareness. You can't heal what you won't feel. You can't transform what you refuse to look at, and you can't change a pattern you've never paused long enough to notice. This is the wisdom of the Stoics. Stillness is not passive. It's powerful. It's the space where you finally meet yourself. We live in a world obsessed with doing, hustle, fix, achieve, upgrade. But without understanding, all that action becomes noise, just movement without direction. Seneca once said, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." So ask yourself, do you know where you're sailing, or are you just chasing the next wave? Understanding precedes change. Before you shift your habits, you must observe your tendencies. Before you silence your anger, you must listen to its message. Before you choose better thoughts, you must first notice the ones that are quietly ruling you. And that's what stillness offers, a mirror. Not always flattering, but always honest. In silence, you notice the patterns, that you seek approval more than truth, that you run from discomfort with distraction, that your anxiety often comes from stories, not facts. And when you notice, you start to understand, not in a harsh, judgmental way, but with clarity, with compassion. This is where Stoicism becomes personal. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, not for others, but to observe himself. You must build up your life action by action and be content if each one achieves its goal as far as possible. That's the process. One insight, one choice, one change. But it all starts with insight. Here's the truth. Self-awareness isn't weakness. It's the beginning of mastery. It's not indulgent. It's foundational. Because if you don't understand what drives your fear, you'll keep reacting to it. If you don't understand your values, you'll keep betraying them. And if you don't understand your pain, you'll keep passing it on. Stillness doesn't fix you, it reveals you. It shows you the contradictions, where you say you want peace but chase chaos, where you crave freedom but live in fear of opinion, where you desire connection but guard your heart behind perfection. And when you see it clearly, you can begin again, wisely. That's the Stoic path. Not to suppress, not to escape, but to see and choose. Change is not forced, it flows from understanding, and understanding only comes when you slow down and listen. So today, take a moment, not to solve, not to plan, just to see. Sit with your thoughts, watch the patterns, name what you feel, and instead of judging yourself, thank yourself for being honest enough to look. That's where real strength begins, because only what's seen can be softened, only what's known can be rewritten, and only what's understood can be transformed. 7. Silence is not emptiness, it's depth, rediscovering presence beneath the noise, silence. The very word makes some people uncomfortable. We fill our lives with noise, music, conversations, notifications, as if quiet were something to fear. But what if silence isn't emptiness? What if it's depth? What if the quiet you avoid is actually where your soul waits to speak? Many people think silence means nothing is happening, but in Stoicism and in truth, silence is where everything starts to happen. Stillness isn't the absence of life. It's the space where life reveals its meaning. Like a calm lake reflecting the sky, your mind, when still, becomes a mirror, not distorted by movement, but clear, honest, deep. As the proverb says, only in quiet waters do things mirror themselves undistorted. Why is this so important? Because in a noisy world, we lose the ability to hear ourselves, our true selves. We live by reaction instead of reflection, by habit, not wisdom. And so we forget to ask, what matters to me? What do I believe? Am I living my truth or just playing a role? The Stoics didn't fear silence, they embraced it. They understood that silence is where you meet your conscience, That gentle inner voice, quiet but never absent, that reminds you of who you are and who you wish to be. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men of his time, retreated often into silence, not because he was weak, but because he knew clarity requires quiet. In his meditations, written as private reflections, he turned inward to understand himself better, not to judge, but to align, to remove what was false and strengthen what was true. Stillness is a teacher, but it speaks softly. You won't hear its wisdom when you're chasing applause, scrolling endlessly, or numbing discomfort with distraction. You'll hear it when you sit quietly, with no goal but to listen. And what do you find in that silence? Not emptiness, but presence. You find that you are not your noise, not your busyness, not your achievements or failures. You are something deeper, a witness, a soul, a mind capable of choosing clarity over chaos. Silence is where you remember. You don't need to prove anything today. You don't need to be anywhere else. You are allowed to be fully, presently. No role to play, no mask to wear, just you, still, aware, and at peace. This is why silence can feel frightening. It strips away distraction. It holds up a mirror. And in that mirror, you might see what you've been running from. But here's the truth. The parts of you that silence reveals are not enemies. They are invitations to heal, to grow, to come home to yourself. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And mastery begins in quiet, not by force, but by attention. So today, try this. Find 5 minutes. Turn off your phone. Close the tabs. Sit somewhere. Just still. Don't try to clear your mind. Just watch it. Let the noise rise, then fall. Let the discomfort pass and stay with it. And beneath the surface, you might hear something small and powerful. Your own wisdom. Waiting. Because silence is not a void. It's a doorway. And beyond it lies the depth you've been missing. Not in the world's noise, but in your own quiet knowing. Stillness isn't empty. It's full of everything that matters. 8. The peace of meeting yourself. Stillness is not escape. It's arrival. What might you discover if you gave yourself the gift of silence? We often imagine silence as something empty, something boring, something we turn to only when there's nothing left to say, nothing left to do. But what if silence was not the absence of life, but the very place where life begins to speak? What if the quiet you fear is the exact place your soul has been waiting to meet you? We live in a time where everything demands attention. Buzzing phones, endless notifications, news, noise, numbness. We're pulled in every direction except inward. And so many people go through life never really meeting themselves. Not deeply, not honestly, not with stillness. But you, right now, you can change that. You can choose to pause, to sit with yourself, to listen without judgment, without distraction. And in that pause, in that breath of stillness, you may find something powerful, a part of you that has always been there. Quiet, steady, wise. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor surrounded by power and responsibility, wrote not to impress others, but to understand himself. He reflected on his thoughts, examined his choices, and reminded himself that the only thing truly his was his own mind. Epictetus, once a slave, taught that the path to freedom was not through control of the world, but through control of your thoughts, your reactions, your choices. And Seneca, he warned that people waste more time than money because they forget that life is made of moments, and each moment spent unconsciously is a moment lost forever. In silence, you reclaim those moments. You notice the details of your thoughts, the stories you've been telling yourself. You see your habits, your hopes, your fears, not as enemies, but as messages. You begin to realize you are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not your distractions. You are the one who can watch them. And that awareness is the beginning of peace. But let's be honest, silence is not always comfortable. In fact, it can feel frightening because when the noise fades, what's left is truth. And truth is raw. It doesn't flatter, it doesn't sugarcoat, but it frees you. It frees you from the pressure to pretend, from the need to impress, from the endless chase for approval. It reminds you that who you are, beneath the noise, is already enough. This is the heart of stillness. It's not about escaping life. It's about meeting life fully, from the inside out. It's about being present enough to feel deeply, to think clearly, to live honestly. It's where wisdom is born, where peace becomes possible, where growth begins. And once you've experienced this inner stillness, even for a moment, you begin to carry it with you, not just in meditation, but in conversation, in difficulty, in choice. You stop reacting from impulse. You start responding from clarity. That's power. That's freedom. That's you, finally meeting yourself. So let me ask you again, what might you discover if you gave yourself the gift of silence? Not just once, but often, not as an escape, but as a return to your values, to your breath, to your true self. Before you move on with your day, take a few minutes, turn everything off, close your eyes, and listen. Not to the world, but to the still sacred space inside you. Because the peace you've been looking for, it's not out there. It's been within you all along, waiting for you to get quiet enough to hear it. And once you do, you'll never be the same.